Welcome to Beyond BIM. Today we are excited to bring to you a short series of episodes from the illustrious co-authors of a newly published book, which is titled Construction 4.0, an innovation platform for the built environment. This book best describes the Construction 4.0 in the context of its current state, emerging trends and technologies, and the people and process issues that surround the coming transformation of this sector. The book is now readily available on Amazon as Kindle or hardback. In this episode, we will delve into the world of cloud-based technologies of construction. Joining us in today's episode are the two co-authors, Kalyan and Ganesh, of the chapter titled Cloud-Based Collaboration and Project Management. Kalyan Vaidyanathan is the co-founder and CEO of Nadhi Information Technologies, incubated out of IIT Madras Research Park. He has nearly 20 years of experience in managing construction projects and specifically enterprise software development. His co-author, Ganesh Devkar, is an associate professor in the Faculty of Technology of CEPT University in India. His research interests are in the areas of lean construction, private-public partnerships, and urban infrastructure development. And now, let's take a look at what these two co-authors have to say on cloud-based transformation in a Construction 4.0. So the first question is, just to tell a little bit more about yourself and your background, and what got you interested in the construction and engineering sector in the first place, albeit I understand you both have more of an IT background.
So I guess my name is Kalyan, and I studied civil engineering out of a college here called IIT Madras in Chennai. Then I went on to get a master's in structural engineering out of Cornell. And I used to work in construction in the US for a few years. And then I switched over and worked for a company called I2 Technologies, which does supply chain management for manufacturing industries. It's kind of where I learned my supply chain skills. And I used to work with companies like aerospace and defense companies, engineer to order companies and things like that, trying to learn how those companies managed projects in a more distributed environment, but still sort of collaboratively. Putting my education background back in space, so we said, why not do this for construction? And so that's when the whole idea of trying to do just collaborative construction management as an idea, or construction supply chain management is how we started. I now run a company called Nadhi Information Technologies, which is incubated from the IIT Madras Research Park. And we do two things. We do lean construction as a consulting service for owners and contractors for projects across India. And we've built a technology platform called Handbook for project controls, which is built on the principles of lean, but tries to adopt some of the concepts of collaborative project controls in its space.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, Ganesh, you are more of a purist in which area then?
Yeah, so let me just introduce. So I work with the Faculty of Technology at CEPT University, which is based in Ahmedabad in India. So my interests are in the domain of lean construction, public-private partnership, and collaborative contracting. I did my PhD from IIT Chennai. In terms of this, the entire idea of this book chapter, as Kalyan has mentioned, it was kind of a very collaborative effort between a practitioner and the academician like me. What was one of the key things which I have been observing when we teach in the studios in my universities, wherein the students bring the real life problems from the construction projects in the classroom setting. We observe that the information sharing among the teams or among the stakeholder or in the supply chain is one of the key issue. And in fact, this book chapter and which is a really a collaborative effort is in this direction, that how the stakeholders which are involved across the supply chain can collaborate with each other, and how the existing state of art of project management can be improved upon.
Okay. And in the new book, which we all have participated in, on Construction 4.0, you have both discussed extensively on cloud-based collaboration and project management. Could both of you share a little bit more about the concept and what it is that you mean when you talk about cloud-based collaboration?
Sure. So I guess what will help is just as a point of view, or sort of to set the stage of where our understanding of the industry comes from, will help kind of drive the whole thing. So the way we see construction, or just the way construction projects are managed today, we're saying it's kind of data or information and people are sort of fragmented along three dimensions, right? So one is that you take any sort of complex infrastructure project, there are multiple stakeholders that come together to make a project. There is an owner at one end of the spectrum who conceives of, wants to pay for, or wants to create an asset. It could be the government or private, right? But it's an entity of sorts. And they start involving various stakeholders along the life cycle of the project to create the project. So one is design consultants, we have contractor, general contractor, subcontractor, an owner's rep or a project management consultant who's kind of gluing all of these people together, and all of whom come together to form what I call as a virtual organization to deliver a project. So people are fragmented. Mm-hmm. Within each organization also, there is fragmentation, right? You take any of these entities like an owner, there is legal, there is procurement, there is projects, there is decision makers, there is site people. Every which way you look at it, it's a very matrixed organization that comes together. So people are fragmented. Let's accept that. The second thing we're saying is the technology that each of them use to manage the project, or at least the information along these projects, is also fragmented. We say that minimally people use an accounting or an ERP system for financial control, a scheduling system for time control, may or may not be having a document management system for document control. But practically, when it comes to collaboration, we're saying it happens on Excel, email, PowerPoint, and today likely a tool like WhatsApp or something like that. So which means information is also silos, people are also silos, and processes are also broken. So that's our worldview of construction, right? Yeah. See, in this worldview, what we're saying is everybody has a very myopic or short-sighted view of what's needed for the project or what is happening for the project, and therefore decision making is very short-sighted. So that's our problem statement as well. So with the whole idea in construction 4.0, because there is now a lot more availability of tools, technologies, infrastructure. Now I'm talking infrastructure, the internet itself as a utility kind of thing. Can we reconceive this whole notion? And if we were to do it, the kind of chapter explains what are the enablers, what are the benefits, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ganesh, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So, to contribute to what Kalyan has said. So I look at this crowd-based collaboration as two aspects. One is a very hard aspect, which is a computing aspect of it, and the softer aspect of this is the collaboration word. So so the idea is that we have practice, or we have one domain of project management. So how we can use bring in the right combination of this both hard and soft aspect of computing as well as the collaboration to manage more and more complex projects. In our chapter, when we are referring to this cloud-based collaboration, we are referring to these three aspects of technology, basically human, then the process aspect, and the collaborative aspect of project management. So the idea is to bring in the integration of these three aspects so that we can do better project management.
So, in the more practical terms, then, could you give examples of ways in which cloud-based collaboration has transformed project management based upon maybe the clients that you've worked with or the examples that you've seen in industry?
Sure. So I'll give you an example, right? So maybe I'll give you a couple of examples. So we worked on a 2 million square feet commercial real estate project here in Chennai, wherein I had the owner, the project management consultant, the contractors, and the consultants, including the architects, have one common information exchange solution for project controls, right? So it is very the nice thing about it is we kind of let the team organically almost osmose the desires and requirements of the solution. What also helped in this case was both the client and the contractor were vocal proponents of lean construction principles, and they were willing to adopt some of the lean principles, particularly large planner system and all of that stuff, and that helped. So remember, I said it's people, process, and tech. So having lean construction as a process enabler, which wherein people can share information, particularly bad news, early enough so that others can intervene and course correct the project, helps. The technology becomes an enabler for it, right? So very practically speaking, the contractor would raise an information request for design clarification. The consultant who's required to address that would address it, and the project management consultant or the owner would kind of watch this traffic, so to speak, right? In this, what the benefit you primarily see is that the latency of decision making is significantly cut down. If you kind of remove this element of what we're talking about, practically what would happen is I would email an RFI to, as a contractor, I would email an RFI to the project management consultant, who would then forward it to the design consultant, who would then have, say, I have 14 days of contractual commitment to respond to this. They would take their 14 days and they would come back with clarifications. And the whole process of getting a decision was taking a long time. Here, that time is completely reduced. And the client actually remarked this. He said, Kalyan, we're able to do projects with a much leaner team, and we can at least see a 20% productivity improvement in just the way we're managing projects.
So obviously, a lot of what you're saying here is that actually cloud-based technologies are kind of driving or enabling that lean process. Has that been the case then?
Good question.
Yes.
Yeah. No, very, very good question. See, this is where we're saying you have to kind of learn to, sorry, Ganesh, I'll just take a minute and then you need to kind of learn. What I say is all of us need to learn to walk before we run, so to speak, right? So in our utopian future world, everybody is lean compliant. Everybody is using this, nice collaborative project control tool, and everybody is getting lead indicators into their project KPIs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you go from where you are today, which is a very fragmented, broken world, maybe a litigious society that we work with, to that utopian world, right? There are many different paths to go there, and that is what we try to say, that you need to actually build. We kind of proposed what I call as a maturity model on going where you are today to kind of where you want to be in the future. And you can either start from a technology route and adopt the processes that enable it, or you can start the process route and then adopt the technologies that enable it. Both are valid ways of doing it. The point being, you should realize that these are the yin and yang of the whole thing, right? You need to have both, like Ganesh says, aligned to get the results that you're looking for. I don't know if either will work without the other. In practical speaks, you can start one way, but you'll still need both, is our humble thought process, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ganesh. Did you want to add something?
So the point is, like, we have I would look at it as a very there is a demand towards this cloud-based collaboration, and there is a supply side. So what I see is there are lot of tools. Or instead of using the word software, I'm using them as a tool. So there are a lot of tools which exist right now in the construction marketplace, which would cater to the needs of specific need of any stakeholder in a construction supply chain. But what is it observed is most of these tools are used very fragmented. So these tools don't speak with each other. And that is one point. And second is the stakeholders also doesn't speak with each other. So one of the thing which lean would enable is like it would direct the attention of the stakeholder that there is a need for the collaboration between the tools what they are adopting, and there is a need of collaboration between the human beings also. So the point is lean should become one of the key part of this the cloud-based collaboration effort.
One thing is that obviously cloud-based technologies, if you look at the computing world, have enabled, lower startup costs and this heavily promulgated data-driven approach. Are you seeing that construction companies are learning from that as well, in the same manner as what we're seeing in the IT and tech world, where cloud-based technologies are creating almost new businesses and new markets?
Good question again. I will tell you what we've seen, and I'm saying it's too early. That's probably the honest answer in this as far as construction is concerned. It's a very slow-moving industry, right? It's a very slow-moving industry, and it's a very large industry. So when I say construction, real estate is one end, residential, commercial, and there's infra, roads, rails, power, oil and gas. So we're talking a very, very large spectrum. So it's very difficult to broad brush the industry in any shape or form.
Yeah.
But having said that, I'm having a very hard time believing that this stakeholder fragmentation will go away. There are exceptions. I will tell you that there are exceptions. There are companies that I know of, both I know a good developer here in India, as well as I know there are companies that are coming up that are trying to upend the industry by saying they will be completely vertically integrated, from doing design to manufacturing to prefabricated, deliver, and more or less converting construction to almost a kit of parts assembly kind of a model, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure they'll become mainstream. They will. I do see those kind of businesses emerging. I do see them giving some parts of the business a run for their money, but I'm not sure I can see them becoming mainstream. That's my worldview. But hey, I can be proved wrong tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
But that's my worldview right now.
So that's interesting. So you've already witnessed that in India as well. These companies that are trying to vertically integrate.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think people are realizing. I mean, prefabrication is coming of age, right? I know, in fact, one of our, Ganesh and I know this professor who recently became the director of a new institute called IIT Tirupati. He built an entire he built, I think, 5 hostels, because he had to get the campus up and running in a very short duration, in about 6 months, by using this technology called GFRG, which is glass fiber reinforced gypsum. Prefabricated panels designed to spec with cutouts and all that stuff, delivered to site and assembled. I think I want to say in about 6 months, he had about 5 towers of about G+6 or something up and running. Right?
Yeah.
But next phase, when the full campus construction is on, they're doing more conventional stuff. And that's because he's worried about the supply side constraints of this company to deliver panels to his large campus needs, right? So it's a chicken and egg question, right? If there's a large supply, would he have gone for prefabrication? Maybe, maybe not. But he still does have a time constraint. But so I see this, both of them kind of coexisting is what I would say. I mean, I don't know, Ganesh, you're more an architectural design school, so you can have a different view of how this works.
Yeah. So I believe, yes, the definitely this cloud based tools would change slowly the face of construction industry. One of the key thing what I see would be that these tools would help in gathering the data, which is many times in the construction industry is as fragmented as the supply chain, and the data which gets collated or collected, the cloud-based tool would give opportunity to analyze this data. So let me just give example, maybe the software tool which are available nowadays in the market, for example, approving any work as far as quality is concerned. Earlier, this process was maybe paper-based. Now, same processes is on software tool. Again, the data which is captured through those software tool is on cloud. So it allows the client and the contractor to have one point of access to data. So definitely, I would say if we see the existing process are getting using this cloud-based tool on the commonsensical parameter of time, cost, and the basic parameter for the project management, definitely the processes will get improved. I would say right now maybe the cloud-based tools would bring improvement on some basic constructs of project management. That's what I can say.
Okay.
So one thing I'll just add one point to that, right? So as a thing, and I'm not sure if our point of view is very Indian in nature, but I will state it for what it's worth. Is there a lot of customers, at least our customers that we speak to, are very price sensitive, right? So they will question anything that we go and take to them as a technology. The first question I'll get asked is, what's the ROI, or what's the value proposition, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And that's one place we're seeing some of these technologies struggle. I mean, like I said, everybody likes the idea that I can do real-time photo capture and collect information. But at the end of the day, the question I get asked is, Kalyan, am I going to build my building faster because of this or not? Right?
Yeah.
So I that's the other probably other dimension to the whole evolution of technology in general, right? So what's in it for me, and what's the ROI out of it?
So then going on that, you're saying that is one challenge. Are there any other challenges of adopting cloud-based technology at the moment?
Yeah. So the other thing that we're seeing is who owns the data. And if, like I said, ultimately this industry is built on centuries of mistrust. Excuse me for saying that, but that's kind of what it is, right? So everybody's always thinking 2 times, 3 times, 4 times before sharing anything with anybody else. So now the question is, how do you create a platform or an enabler, tech enabler, wherein everybody's happy to share information and not worried about the consequences of bad news, so to speak. And so one of the things we emphasize in our book is we're saying, if you're trying to create a true collaborative project management platform, the neutrality of the platform will be its strength itself. So nobody should own the platform in a sense, or everybody should own it. I don't know how you want to think. So everybody feeds data into it. Everybody gets data from it based on, it's almost like if you think of internet is a utility.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to the next question then. So both of you are experts in the digitization of construction. So, and a lot of the conversation that we're seeing now over the past few years is predominantly focusing on BIM. So can you explain to our listeners how cloud-based technology is kind of pushing that conversation beyond just BIM?
So BIM is another favorite of ours, which is, what is BIM, right? So the normal association or mental model when people say BIM is a 3D model, right? Whereas if you realistically peel the onion a little bit, BIM is more a process, right? The I in the BIM we're thinking is actually intelligent information, right? So it's more about the information management that we think is BIM. So if you now think of I as intelligent information, then what we are proposing as cloud-based collaborative project management is to make that I more collaborative. It's not the 3D model, but it's the information exchange across the stakeholders during the life cycle of the project, which we think is going to make it interesting. But so that's my short answer. I mean, I know, Ganesh, you can add to it.
Yeah. So I see one of the key thing about this BIM is also about kinds of hands-off which happens, or a kind of stage gate through which the BIM model goes or evolves. So maybe if I say as Kalyan has told, it's more of a collaborative process which goes into developing that model is important rather than the model itself. But the point which Kalyan has mentioned is about this life cycle. So the cloud-based tool would also help in taking this BIM model across the life cycle of a project. Like I'm talking about right from the at the conceptualization stage to as built BIM model, and that BIM model getting transferred to the facility management team for doing the facility management. So there's a lot of data which gets refined across the life cycle of a project. So one thing is how the BIM model will go through these stage gates, and how these different stakeholders would get aligned or will get involved in the life cycle of a BIM model. So maybe the cloud-based collaboration tool would definitely help in terms of transition of this BIM model across project life cycle. That's what I want to add.
Okay. And if we now take a little futurist approach and glance into the future, could you give us a little indication of how you perceive construction project management will shift in the next 5 years?
No lawyers. No, I'm just kidding. so no, but I jokes apart, in our view, in the next 5 years, what will happen is we're saying project reviews itself will be more immersive in nature, right? What I mean by immersive in nature is that when you're trying to, if let's say you're the owner and you're calling for a, I don't know, monthly progress review of the project, today 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10 times, somebody is presenting you with a PowerPoint on where your project is at, where your budgets are at, where your timelines are at, and what your future is going to look like. So we think that view will be more immersive in nature, in the sense that you'll be actually able to do a virtual walkthrough of your facility, looking at the completed parts where you can see KPIs of things that's been done, productivity, cycle times, budgets and costs. And when you look into the unconstructed, yet to be constructed part of the project, you will get to see your constraints, your decision points, your the design clarifications, your procurement markers and things like that. So we're saying that people will actually be able to get a more immersive experience when it comes to actually reviewing their projects, and they'll be able to touch and feel their decisions right there. Right? So they'll be able to, if you can imagine, if I'm going to walk on the third floor of a building where second floor is just about done, I should be able to virtually touch a point and say, here, I'm going to make this decision because I can see that there is a clash here that I can quickly resolve. Right? That's our view of how we think project management itself will shift. And so enabling technologies that will come along the way are some AR, some MR, VR kind of a thing. But the plumbing is where we're saying people need to think more about, right? How do I effectively make sure that all of these systems, like I said, there is a 3D model that you have, there is a schedule that you have, there is a cost or there is a contractual quantity you have. How do you make sure all these three things talk the same language, are interconnected with each other, so that when one element moves or one schedule activity gets delayed, all the other systems that are impacted somehow know about it, in a sense. And I think that's the challenge, and that's the problem I think that needs to be researched and thought about.
Yeah. So, Kalyan, I understand that are you the co-founder of Nadhi Information Technologies?
Yeah.
And Ganesh, what is your role?
I'm a faculty. I'm associate professor in Faculty of Technology at CEPT University in India.
Okay, I see. So then this question is more focused on Kalyan. from an industrial perspective, could you share with us what are the biggest challenges that your company specifically faces in that transition towards Construction 4.0?
So one of the challenges we face is that, and I don't mean this in any, I'm just saying this almost factually, right? So the change to a Construction 4.0, as we see it, is a transformative one, right? And people, I think, underestimate the complexity involved in this. Again, just going back to what we said, it is people, process, and technology. And when it comes to people, getting people to change is not an easy joke, right? So the technologies is almost the easy part here. Getting people to adapt, adopt, and change along with the technology, because it's in line with some of your future vision, is where we experience a lot of change. And so when we try to educate them about it, they will see it, but they may not necessarily buy it, right? So I'd say the people people underestimate the complexity of the transition from the current way of working to the future way, or the Construction 4.0 way, if you will want to call it that, is where we see a lot of challenges.
Does that allude to more of a mindset problem?
Mindset, yes, but also, again, if you're saying lean, if you're willing to take lean as a process enabler, lean says that you also, if in order to get the benefits out of lean or a pure collaborative working, contractual structures need to change as well. You need to have economic alignment. You need to have all the stakeholders to be aligned to a common economic incentive, right? Which is not, as an owner, your incentive is to get the project done at minimum cost. But as a contractor, my incentive is to maximize my profit. So right there's misalignment, right? So now getting everybody to be aligned on a common economic platform means the contractual structures need to change as well. So mindset, yes, but there are other things like the contracts.
Okay, thank you. And then Ganesh, from an educational standpoint, where do you see the key challenges lie for academic institutions, particularly when facing Construction 4.0 and this rapid pace of change that we're witnessing?
Yeah, so one thing would be definitely we need to address the supply side issues in terms of creating the skill sets in the existing construction professionals to understand this Construction 4.0. So we need to really create this skilled construction, I would say rather Construction 4.0 ready professionals who would be very equipped to address the industry needs. That would be the first, I would say, the supply side issues. And in terms of demand, I think definitely, as Kalyan has mentioned, there is a need that maybe, I don't know, the dialogue, how it could be between a demand and supply side stakeholders to really drive the value proposition in the minds of this construction industry professionals, that there is a need to adopt the cloud-based collaboration tool. So I would really see that on one side we need to have some efforts in terms of building the skill sets, which is the supply side efforts, and then in the demand side efforts, we need to really maybe not, I don't want to educate the construction industry stakeholders, but we need to really drive the agenda of what kind of value proposition we could have with cloud-based tool. So I would say if there is a good dialogue between these both sides, definitely it will take off in a right spirit.
Okay. And then finally, this will apply to both the perspectives that you have from industry and education. For those aspiring researchers or future engineers within this field, what advice would you give to them when choosing to try and make an impact or challenge our industry?
I'm not sure I have an easy answer there, but I will try. So there's one or two points that I'm probably repeating myself, sounding like a broken record. One is, like I said, value proposition. It is a very price sensitive industry. So when people are trying to develop tools, all these tools look like nice, shiny new hammers. But at the end of the day, I keep joking with my team about this, right? So if I had a web page which is like as white and as clean as a Google homepage, and if my owner can type a question saying, "Is my project going to get done on time and within budget?" That's the answer to that is the only thing that all of us are trying to arrive at, right? Everything else should answer that question in some shape or form, right? So I would say if you're doing research, I'm saying answering that value proposition question in a price sensitive industry would be something that people should think about at least before it gets to a commercial stage. The second thing I would say is, and I just came back from a trip to the US. We live in the half of the world which still struggles with internet speeds and reliable internet to begin with, right? So, forget about 4G and 5G. We're talking about just the availability of G, right?
Yeah.
So in this environment, we're all talking cloud-based collaboration. So that assumes that internet as a utility with high speed and reliability is available. That backbone sometimes is not, and that there's a good part of the world where that backbone is not available. So in this environment, what does it mean for cloud-based collaboration? How would you adapt or adopt the technology to work in a part of the world where the technology may not even be available as reliably as we expect?
Thank you for tuning in to listen to BeyondBIM podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more from our latest episodes, then you can visit BeyondBIM, which is available on SoundCloud and iTunes and all the other major podcast providers.